All right, this is 8. I didn't name 7 because I didn't think about it before the news got my interest. So here we are again, living life on the at the limit. Life at 55, life at 35. Now we're at life at 15. We're gonna go back up to 35 because we're gonna drive down Montauk Highway into Hampton Bays. Anyway, heavy body weight in ounces of water. 6 things, breathe, eat, drink, say, do, think. And here we go. I love you all. And I had a nice time with some of my family this weekend. You know who you are. Okay, here we go.
They do this as an act of defiance. So what could this have to do with America? Well, an eerie thing happens. First of all, the word in Hebrew there is not cedar because they didn't speak English, but it's the word erez or erez tree, and that can be a cedar, but it literally means a evergreen, conifer, pine, or panaceaea tree is the best.
All right, if you didn't hear the last segment, it was kind of integral to what we're talking about now. We're talking about the different things that were foretold in the past that are all coming true. Most of them so far seem to be man-created things that happened, 9/11, and then actions that happened, except for the thing falling on the tree, which was foretold, and the tree in Manhattan happened to be the right tree, sycamore tree. But in any case, back to the show.
The best translation.
All right.
So here's what happens. 3 years after 9, or actually 2 years after 9/11, a sign appears, a tree appears in the sky above the ground zero at the corner, being lowered by this giant crane. It's being lowered to the soil near ground zero to get into an exact spot, and they lower it to the exact spot where the sycamore of ground zero had stood. They put it down. That tree is not a sycamore. What kind? It's an evergreen. It's a conifer. It is the panaceaea tree. It's the biblical erez tree of Isaiah.
And it's there growing right now as we speak.
It's there right now.
Okay.
It's there right now. And again, George, it's not that anybody is trying to do it. It's just happening. I mean, the terrorists they weren't trying. They had no idea, and certainly these people who are doing this have no idea.
Right.
And they have a ceremony around the tree. In each case, the harbinger or the omen becomes the symbol. They call it the tree of hope. They have a ceremony around it, and they don't realize they're performing an ancient act of judgment.
Okay, so if these 9 omens have already occurred, is that curtain time then for us, Jonathan?
Well, it's going to lead. The harbingers are actually going to lead into a second shaking, which we can get into, which opens up a whole other realm of mysteries. It's fascinating. It's scary, but it's fascinating. The thing is that in the harbinger, the book it has 2 parts, and the first are about the 9 omens, but the second are about the second thing that's happened that's affecting us to this day. And I'll tell you some things so you guys get into what you want to get into. That I'll share one, or actually I'll touch on something here.
Sure.
With if you go to the 8th omen, and this gets even more eerie, George, and this is that it's the vow itself. The ancient leaders, they actually vowed this vow. It had to be spoken by the leaders because otherwise it wouldn't be significant for you representing the nation. And they did it in ancient Samaria. That was the capital where they ruled. So for this harbinger or omen to appear, what has to happen is that somehow an American leader would have to do the same thing, would have to actually vow the same thing and repeat the words or in some way vow this vow of defiance, have to be in the capital city as it was in ancient Israel, and it would have to be a public thing. So could this happen? Because what American leader in their right mind is going to do is going to vow this vow, which is really a vow pronouncing judgment or calamity on a nation. So the amazing thing is, eerie thing is that 3 years after 9/11, on the actual anniversary of 9/11, in the capital city, a gathering takes place, and it's a caucus, and a American leader, very famous, he was running for vice president that year, it was John Edwards. He gets up, and he says, on the anniversary of 9/11, he says, there is a word that is for us now, and he doesn't realize what he's doing. He begins, out of his mouth comes the ancient utterance of judgment or of destruction. When he says it, he says, the bricks have fallen.
No.
Yeah, and we will rebuild with hewn stone.
And look what happened to him.
Yeah. Well, that's interesting because I'm going to tell you another person where it happens, and people have noted the same thing. And he says this, and he says this ancient vow. He thinks out of 30,000 verses that he thinks are inspiring, he doesn't realize what he's saying, and he vows the vow, and then he builds his entire speech around it. He says we're putting up the cedar, he's doing this whole thing that he's making the ancient vow, the vow of America. And if you go back, another harbinger is the prophecy, and that is that actually this vow was said prophetically because the leaders of ancient Israel said it before they actually went forth and did these things, and it became a matter of national record through Isaiah's oracle. Well, the other thing that happens is that the day after 9/11, and we were kind of so really shaken up that we didn't realize what was happening, but the day after 9/11, America gives its response to this, and so it becomes very, very important in this whole scenario. And what happens is that the man chosen to give the response is the Senate Majority Leader, and this happens on Capitol Hill itself. It's the Congress is all gathered, and the man who's Tom Daschle, another man who
fell from grace.
Yeah. He comes up to the Senate floor, and he gives the response to America. He's representing the entire nation at that moment, and when he gets to the end of his speech, he says, there is a word from Isaiah that I think speaks to all of us at times like this. And then from the Senate floor, out of his mouth, comes the ancient utterance of destruction or judgment. And he says, the bricks have fallen, but we will rebuild with dressed stone. He talks about the tree, and then he talks of, and we will plant cedars. He does this whole thing. Everybody, this is in front of Congress. Becomes a matter of national record, and the people are all listening. They have no idea what's going on. He doesn't know what's going on. He thinks it's just, an inspiring thing. And he says, this is what we will do. He's setting the course. This is the ancient drama reenacted. He says America is going to follow the same course as the ancient Israel in its last days without realizing. And he's actually prophesying because he doesn't know. He speaks about a tree that struck down, and he doesn't even realize there is a tree that they just discovered like that day at Ground Zero. He speaks of the stone that I spoke about, the other omen, and he doesn't realize 3 years later it's going to happen. He speaks of the other tree that's going to be replaced, and it's all going to happen. And everything he says is going to happen. So it is eerie, it is amazing, and it is scary, but it's there.
Well, the fact that they have happened and they're there, how did you equate that into collapse or destruction?
Well, that is all these things that happen that have happened are the exact objects or the exact omens or harbingers or signs that happened in the same exact scenario in ancient Israel.
Okay, so because of what happened then, you're making the assumption, and maybe rightfully so, that it's going to happen again.
Well, if you look at the actual vow that's vowed, that's the absolute. There's no other interpretation. I mean, from what happened then. So the thing is that the question is, does it have to happen in America? That is the issue. Does it have to happen? What it's saying is that if we continue on our course unchanged, then that is exactly where it leads to. And we're going to see. I mean, it doesn't end with 9/11. I mean, it comes to what's happening right now at this moment.
When we come back, Jonathan, we're going to talk about what's happening right now. You talk about the second shaking, and also I've got to ask you about this very strange story involving the Super Bowl and some mysterious stranger that, of course,
it's green light
is
now, so
how
now I go.
the Harbinger got published. It's a weird story, but I want you to react to that when we come back right here on Coast to Coast AM. Jonathan Kahn, our special guest. We're talking about his work, The Harbinger. I'm George Norrie.
All right. So now we are passing Southampton College. They used to have a windmill here. I don't know what happened to it. They took it down. The framework is still there. The actual windmill is not there anymore. I'm actually just going to pull over here, so I'll let all these people who have places to go, so I can wrap this up without having anybody all upset with me. All right. I hope everybody's interested. If you're not, don't tune in for the next couple of episodes. Wait until it says March 6th, because that'll be a whole nother show. But this will probably be the way this show ends. So, breathe, eat, drink, say, do, think. Breathe. Number 1 is the first one, and we just passed that smoke shop, which is, you know, the Indian reservation. And, you know, your lungs are trying to stay alive, and your body cleans them 24/7 every day of your life for a reason, because if you don't breathe air, you do not live. You have 3 minutes without air and you are done. 3 days without water, 3 weeks without food. And they're not going to be fun. They're definitely not. The second and third of any of those are going to be really torturous. But you will not die until that, for the most part, until that stopwatch stops. In any case, that's it. So I'm going to wrap this up. I love you guys, and I will talk to you on the next one. All right? Have a great one. You make it great, because it's yours to make. All right? One love. 1 times 1. That's how it goes. All right, love you. See ya.